All right. Thank you all again for joining us here tonight. I am Taylor Moreland. I'm the CEO of Agri Drones, and we are talking about the EAVision J150, which we just released about 2 weeks ago. And there's a lot of questions out there about this drone. What have we done with it? What are the specs, capabilities, testing results, what we like, what we don't like. So that is exactly what we're talking about tonight. That's pretty much all we're talking about tonight. Normally we do a little bit just about the spray drone industry, just in general, kind of some current events, and just about the spray drone market and whatnot for new operators. Tonight is really just about this drone. I hope that's why you're here, because that's all we're talking about. Like I said, going through everything that we've done with this drone, everything we know about this drone, and all of the system around it as well. So here's kind of a list of what we'll talk about. We will, of course, as always, leave plenty of questions at the end, plenty of time for questions at the end, and everything around the drone. And that's if you are a new user or looking at getting into the spray drone market right now, starting a business, that's a great time to ask those kind of questions. But during the webinar here, we're pretty much talking about just the J150. So kind of some quick highlights. If you guys have to jump early, then what are the quick highlights? What should you know? So right off the bat, what I will say about this drone is that we have put more acres and hours, not just here at Agri Spray Drones, but across a number of operators across the country using this drone prior to release. So we actually have more experience with this drone than we ever have had with any other drone ahead of its release during application season. So not being launched after application season or testing after application season, but actually during application season in real world environments, which has given us a lot of good insight into the capabilities, into the bugs that need fixed, into any issues we're going to find in season during hard running. So some of the quick highlights here is we've noticed a really good battery life, especially for the size of this drone, and heat tolerance as well. We had a great summer for testing heat tolerance, not a great summer for running drones, but the heat tolerance of the battery is very good. Wide swath pattern, which we'll get into in a bit, but kind of a unbelievable wide swath pattern, and we'll show you those results here after a while. The terrain following has impressed us every single time that we've run it on any type of terrain in flatland mode at any speed. It is a completely overhauled hardware and software from the J100 system. There is, I don't think, anything besides bolts and nuts that is the same on this drone, on both hardware and software. Some of the features, of course, in the software are the same, but a lot of things have been added. It is a 20-gallon liquid tank and 180-pound dry spreader. It has already covered a lot of acres here in the U.S., which we'll get into, and we have a test group of applicators. So applicators have been running these drones here, the production units we sent out about a month and a half to 2 months ago, have already been running these drones, and they're in direct communication with the EAV team and ourselves, and have been communicating anything that they find wrong with the drone during that time frame. Okay, so let's just cover the specs first here, kind of just a broad overview of the specs. Of course, many of you already know a lot of this, but we'll kind of go to on some details on this. So it is a 20-gallon liquid tank. And I know a lot of the marketing and whatnot will say 70 liters. If you look it up, it's like on EAVision's website and whatnot. But it does hold 20 gallons. We've literally measured out 20 gallons, put it in there. The scale, a lot of times will only read about 19 and a half, even when it has 20 gallons in it. But it does hold 20 gallons. It has 10.5 gallon per minute flow rate with 4 nozzles, half of that with 2 nozzles. So each nozzle basically has a 2.5 gallon flow rate, and each pump has a 5.2 gallon flow rate. It is capable of, so it's a rotary atomizer system, just like every other drone on the market now, for the most part, meaning centrifugal force, rotary atomizer nozzles, and they're capable from 10 to 300 microns, although we are testing larger droplet sizes right now, basically just to see how high we can push it with current nozzles and with new nozzles. and it has full flow rate at every micron size throughout that range there. The spreader system, which we're doing a lot of work with the spreader right now, spreading a lot of cover crop, it has a 180-pound capacity, but you probably won't be able to fill that, to that capacity with a lot of different seeds, anywhere between probably 130 to 180 pounds. And it is auger fed, so the auger comes out just like all of the newest spray drones auger fed, and has a full open top. So the top is the entire size of the center of the drone, and it actually has no lid. And it has an aluminum gate on top, or aluminum grate, I should say, to basically stop chunks from getting through. We thought the no lid thing was going to be a problem, but actually turns out to be more convenient than it is a hassle, or than it is a problem. And if you guys are looking for pictures and whatnot of the drone, probably not going to be doing a lot of pictures here. We'll look at the app here in a bit, but as far as the drone itself, not a lot of pictures. There's a lot of content on our site and on our YouTube page where you can actually see what it looks like if you haven't seen one yet. Okay, speed. Right now, it is capped out at 45 feet per second, or 30 miles per hour, with full obstacle avoidance and terrain following. We are currently testing 40 miles per hour, which is everything we've run on at 40 miles per hour, which we've done quite a bit of running at 40 miles per hour. It is plenty capable, and will do terrain following, even on some pretty steep stuff. It just slows down to do so to about that 30 mile per hour speed. But before we, of course, release 40 miles per hour on the software, work with the EAV to release that, we want to run it for quite a while to see what the limitations are, because it's pretty fast for a 20-gallon drone. So we want to make sure that everybody knows what the limitations are on that. The battery is a 45,000 milliamp hour battery. It is 58 volts and it weighs 45 pounds. So it's a pretty heavy battery, but the location of the battery on the drone, if you guys have seen it, it's on the very back of the drone. So there's no frame behind the battery. It's just battery back there. That's for a few reasons that have to do with basically for penetration, for high volume work, and for swath width, and keeping kind of that weight distributed over the rear motors as consistently as possible. But it also does make changing out a 45-pound battery, which is pretty heavy, a little bit easier because you can keep it pretty close to your leg as you change it out without lifting up over the frame or the props. And it will spray a full tank at a 2-gallon per acre rate in most situations. So if your ferry distance is not too far, maybe only 500, 600 feet, and your speed is set to 45 feet per second, then you should be able to spray out a full tank unless your rows are just really short at a 20-gallon rate now, or 20-gallon in the tank. In most situations, you won't actually need 20 gallons in the tank to do so. If you're on a half-mile long field, or quarter-mile long field, or even a mile long field, then you don't actually need a full 20 gallons unless you are cranking that swath width out to the widest in our tests at a 2-gallon rate, that is. And it will spray a 16-gallon out of the tank in pretty much every situation. So if you have really short rows or a long ferry distance, then 16 gallons seems to work pretty good in about every situation that we've come across, unless you're ferrying out a mile, I guess that is. The charger is 13,000 watts for fast charging, but it can be dialed down. So if you guys are running Predator generators or cheap Westinghouses still, then you probably not going to be able to run this charger at full power unless you split it out and run it on 2 of them. However, we've got a few chargers or generators that we've tested that do work quite a bit better, which I can answer there at the end, I guess. Okay, on the electronics specs, kind of the quick hits here. So the signal and data link, it links directly with the remote controller, so just like a DJI basically, links directly with the remote controller from the antennas on the remote to the antennas on the drone whenever you boot the things up. It can also use a SuperLink relay. That's what EAVision calls the relay station, is the SuperLink. It can use a SuperLink relay box to triangulate your signal like DJI. And then you can also use a 4G connection. So if there's a SIM card in the drone and a SIM card in the remote, or your remote's on a hotspot, then it'll seamlessly switch to 4G connection if you do lose that direct link from your remote or your super link. The cool thing about this is you can actually also get the app that runs on the remote over to an Android device. And if you're running on 4G and your phone or Android device is on the internet or 4G, then you can see everything and actually do some control of the automation, like stopping the drone from that Android device, which is pretty interesting. The FPV camera is a fixed fisheye camera. There's no gimbal. That's how a lot of drones are going now. It's a fixed fisheye camera with a virtual gimbal. So it does still gimbal down and up, but it is a virtual gimbal. The wiring is completely, like I mentioned earlier, wiring is all completely changed from the 100. The most notable thing there is it doesn't use like a bus bar system where there's multiple components connected together on kind of one harness, one cable. Every component is separated from your spray system to your scales, to your nozzles, to each motor, to each of your sensors and everything. It's all separated out, makes diagnosing and actually finding if there's an issue quite a bit easier. Okay, now as far as the history, like I said, we've been running this drone for quite a while. As far as the history of the 150 and kind of the timeline here. So in May, we got 5 prototype units that arrived here, and we began limited testing. Only 3 were actually in operation. The 2 were used as spare parts since we had no spare parts. And there were several changes made from the prototype units to the production units. A lot on the software modification began happening at that time. In July, that's when we received 60 production quality units, which we sent out about 40, I believe, kind of July, beginning of August. And about 30 are doing a decent amount of work, and that's a lot of the data that we've been collecting from the applicators. Then August, we ourselves running one of our drones pretty hard. If we weren't spraying for doing custom application, fungicide or herbicide or whatever, then we were just spraying water to try to get as many acres as possible onto a unit. And in August, we hit over 10,000 acres on a unit, and I think we're probably 12,500 acres by the end of today, I believe. And now this month, the data that we can get from our operators who've been running these drones looks like we're covering about 80,000 acres have been covered across the board between the operators and running these drones. Okay, let's jump into Swath testing. I'm going to show you guys the results, but before I do, running 4 nozzles shows a very wide and, like I mentioned, kind of frankly unbelievable swath. Now I know it's a big drone; it has a lot of downforce, but we weren't quite expecting that much uniformity on a wide swath between 35 and 45 feet, which made me very skeptical. And I still kind of am a little bit skeptical whenever I see a wide pattern like that. But we have a lot of operators been running that between 35 and 40 feet, and it does seem to be working very well. So we still want to do more testing, of course, because it also showed us that 2 nozzles did not work nearly as well as 4 nozzles did. I'm sure it has to do with fluid dynamics, but that was not what we expected. So we'll have more testing to come, but we did quite a bit of thorough testing already, and it seems to show a pretty wide and consistent swath with 4 nozzles. One thing I do want to make clear before we get to the results is, just because there's a drone that has a wide swath, or just because, you're running, even on drones that you're running a 30-foot swath even, doesn't mean you have 30 foot of penetration, right? We're seeing a lot of that with fungicide application on corn this year, where disease pressure was high, where there's streaking in fields, where, prior years with the same model of drone, we hadn't seen that. And a lot of it has to do, I believe, with penetration and, of course, disease pressure. Just because we're getting a wide swath, if you have a tall crop, you might not be getting that fungicide down to the ear leaf. And so if penetration is a big deal, more so than efficiency, then that's something you want to keep in mind. Okay, let's get over to our swath testing results here. These are live, publicly, freely available on our website. Go to agrispraydrones.com and then go to our Knowledge Hub on our Resources tab and just search J150 swath results and swath testing, and you should find those there. And there's kind of an explainer video here, so I'm not going to go in too deep of detail on kind of how to read these tests and everything, but it is important to kind of understand this because it does matter quite a bit. And I'll pull this up on a bigger screen so you guys can see this. So we did 42 different tests, and this is basically changing one variable, running 3 passes, changing another variable, running 3 passes, and we could have done 1,042 different tests because there's many different variables you can change. But this gives us kind of a good baseline to start with anyways. We tried to run these tests. We've been doing tests like this the same way with the same third-party company for, I guess, 4 seasons now. And we try to stick with about the same protocols when it comes to application rate and speed and height, which are really kind of your 2 primary factors, speed and height. The drone's obviously not 30 feet wide or 40 feet wide, so how is it getting coverage out to that distance? Well, spray drones use prop wash vortex, of course, and speed and height are 2 of the primary factors that have an effect on that. But there are other factors, like we've learned here with this drone, such as number of nozzles matters quite a bit, micron size matters quite a bit, volume and tank can matter as well, not something you can necessarily control, but it does matter. And then, of course, adjuvant matters as well. I'm just going to show you guys, because you can look at these yourselves and get your own results. I don't want to tell you what you should run, with any drone. That should be, I just give you the results, and you should, take those results and figure out what you think is best. It is subjective. But I'll show you guys what I mean by 2 versus 4 nozzles and 4 being much wider. So we'll just look at this one here. This is 2 nozzles, 2 GPA, 45 feet per second, 10 feet high, 300 microns, what many people would be running when they're doing, broadacre fungicide application, which is what this drone, these drones do a lot of. So looking at this test here, the big thing you want to look at is your CV down here in the bottom right corner. That's your variation going back and forth across your pattern, because you're not going to have, drones don't have booms, so it's not spraying straight down. It's kind of, going out away from the drone, creating a bell curve. And so you need overlap, and that's why you look at the CV over here. Below 15 is considered good by the company who does this test for us. We don't get to below 15 here unless we get to off the chart 26 feet or so, which is pretty surprising to me whenever I first saw the 2 nozzle results. And this is very consistent for every 2 nozzle test that we did across the board. Some look a little bit better than this, some look a little bit worse than this potentially, but all the 2 nozzle results looked somewhat similar to this, which was interesting to me, especially whenever we looked at the 4 nozzle results here. So this is the same test. Everything's the same on this one that we're going to look at, except it had 4 nozzles instead of 2. And you can see the bell curve is a little bit less aggressive as far as going down. And you can see at 36 feet, we have 16, 34, we have 15%. That's considered good. And so wind, of course, is a variable that you can't necessarily control. And just to be, clear on, how we do these tests, we try to keep wind as not a variable. Let's pick a day that's not too windy, and then spray into the wind every time. So wind changes directions, we spray in, we move the line, spray into the wind to remove that as a variable. And this was not an anomaly. You can check out all these 4 nozzle tests here, and you can see when we got to especially like 100 microns right here, we started doing the 100 micron testing with the same parameters. The pattern got much better. 8% CV at 45 feet is pretty insane. Same thing with the next test, which was same 100 microns, just flying a bit slower, and 9% at 45 feet. So like I said, kind of unbelievable, but there are some real world results out there that show that it does actually do what our tests show. Of course, there are factors outside of your control. But check those results out and look through those. Make sure you do a thorough evaluation. Okay, so I talked about how we've been testing this drone quite a bit, and part of that's endurance testing. So software, whatnot, that's pretty easy. Just run the drone for a bit and see things need improved, and then work with a developer to improve them. Endurance testing has a lot to do with hardware, though, and you can't get that unless you actually run a drone pretty hard. And so that's what we've been doing ourselves at Agri Spray Drones. We actually have an applicator who's been spraying, well, almost every day. And so far I have 12,500 acres to date on a single platform, a single drone, 3 batteries, charger, what you'd be running if you're running yours. And the goal is to find what's going to break first, right? That way we know kind of what to expect. Now, of course, how we run our drone might be different than how you run your drone, how we have applicators out there running their drones. What they might see might be a little bit different than what we might see. But from a hardware perspective, it should be somewhat uniform across the board. So just to cap off what we've seen so far, we replaced a motor at 11,500 acres. We noticed a bearing that was going out whenever we were checking the props. That was just last week, actually, and kind of noticed some clicking in the motor there. It probably would have been fine to keep running for a bit, but when your motor has some clicking sound, you probably better go ahead and replace it. Flow meter replaced about 5,000 acres. It was not reading the left side. We actually could have continued running that same flow meter on the drone with bypass mode, but we decided to replace it. Battery terminals on the drone were replaced at 10,000 acres, around there. And one of the terminals, or the terminals on the battery, were also replaced, one of the batteries. This was a battery that was actually dropped off a trailer, and it bent the pins. I did not notice that in the battery terminals. Put it in the drone, and it messed up one of the terminals on the drone itself. And then the charger has a fan that is clicking whenever it starts up, but it does still seem to work. That's all the hardware that we've replaced on that unit. We haven't had any issues that have caused it not to operate besides what you see here on the screen. So overall, pretty happy with how this unit has been performing, and many of our applicators out there been running this have said the same thing. Although I don't think anybody has this many acres on their drone just yet, but some of them have 3,000 to 5,000 acres on their system. Okay, so just to go through the issues that our operators who've been running production unit J150s in the field have seen themselves. We actually have a group chat with the CEO and COO of EAVision, as well as one of their engineers. Not just us, but some of these applicators as well, so they can directly communicate. And there's about 20 applicators in that group. So this is from their feedback, and then a few others as well that our account managers are working with. So flow meters has been an issue as far as being cracked out of the box. We have seen several of these that guys started running them, noticed leaking, and it was actually cracking on the flow meter. It was caused by over tightening during assembly, and then cracking and shipping. And so basically what we're doing to solve this problem is we've gone through every single one of the drones that has came in and we'll be sending out, and filled the tanks up, tested them, done a full evaluation of them to make sure that they don't leak. We did find a few of those that did leak, and those were all replaced. There was one pump failure on one of the drones. There was 2 drones that had, which is kind of a more serious issue that we noticed. 2 drones had an eyelet on a terminal, basically where the power connects one of the motors to the terminal block, break in the air, which did cause a crash. Both those drones right around 3,000 acres. EAV also said this happened on 2 drones in China as well. And we have, several drones obviously above the 3,000 acres that haven't caused this issue. But what we've found is this was actually caused by a couple things: vibration in the terminal not being supported, and then being put on at the wrong angle. So the solution was to use a support block under those terminals that takes out the vibration, and then change the angle of the eyelet that goes in. It's just the one eyelet there in the back. This has been done on all the commercial units and hasn't caused a problem since. The rear cover, we did notice on these drones, was starting to rub through the wire insulation after about between 4,000 and 5,000 acres, and basically just kind of the ribs on that rear plastic cover. If those wires weren't secured down into kind of the clamps that hold them, they would come up and then start rubbing on there. This very simple fix on this was just to put a pad between the cover and the wires, which has been done on all the commercial units. This didn't cause a crash or anything, but something that we noticed. And then there's been just a few software bugs that have been caught and fixed. The nice thing about working with EAVision, especially having them in this the chat that we have with all the operators, is if there is a bug that somebody finds an issue, something like that on their unit, submit the logs, something like that. EAVision looks through it. They look through the code, and then of course they actually admit that they found a bug, and so there was a few of those that were caught and fixed as well. Other than operator kind of training and a few minor operator errors, where don't understand how to do an update or something like that, where an update failed because it was a beta update, didn't go through. This has really been about it. That has what we've noticed that we thought was something serious to actually do a change on. And then what we wish was better. Of course, no drone is perfect. We want to be critical, especially when we have this much experience on this unit itself. And there are 3 things, and 2 of them are basically the same thing, I guess. So the camera quality is not as good as DJI. The main thing is it doesn't have as good of it doesn't have stabilization. So we're DJI 40, 50, 60. Have stabilization, so you fly forward and the camera stays level. The EAVision system does not, the J150 I should say, does not have stabilization. So you fly forward and the camera will look down until of course it levels out. Now one thing about the 150 is it, compared to other drones, especially of its size, the angle of attack, especially at flying at full speed, is not nearly as aggressive. It basically just has to do with the design of the airframe. It's not nearly as aggressive, so you only kind of get that downward facing camera whenever you are accelerating, and then as it's reaching that top speed, then it will stabilize. And of course, when you stop, it looks up too. It does take some getting used to if you are used to a very stable camera. The FPV range, we have noticed, is not as good as, it's about comparable to like a 40 or 50 for the most part. It's really hard. These are all subjective, of course, but it is not as good as the T60. So if you're flying behind trees, over hills, which you shouldn't necessarily do anyways, but if you are, of course everybody does, then you need to use a SuperLink relay to maintain that signal for your FPV. 4G right now on the J150 doesn't do FPV, it just does basically your data communication. So you can still see the drone and control the automation of it, just no manual flight and no FPV with 4G. So that's where a SuperLink for flying behind trees or over hills is what you're going to want to use with the J150. And then the flow meter, we have noticed that it may read inaccurate with certain products. It's not every product, but it is certain products, especially if they're agitated very thoroughly, and there's air in those products, or it's a certain viscosity, whatnot. We've noticed that doesn't sense it correctly, and you'll get some. It'll put on a bit too much sometimes. Now this is fixed with the 150 by a bypass mode I mentioned earlier. So you can actually bypass the flow meter. It's just a setting in the remote. Click that, and then you basically just it's a calibration. So you just do a calibration based on the flow rate that you're actually getting out, which in some cases can be more accurate, anyways. But is something that we're working with EAVision to see if we don't have to use that bypass. That would be a little bit more convenient with those products, but it's not something that will stop you from operating. Okay, let's we're gonna jump into software here, and I'm gonna pull the screen up on the remote so you guys can actually see the software. We'll look at what mapping looks like, look at the settings, look at different things in there, both on the remote and on the app and CRM system, which is kind of the cloud system. But just simply put, the software on the 150 does bring a lot of settings and features that DJI users, like myself, like I've been for the past 4 years, or are used to, I should say. And then it brings a lot of unique features, of course, that EAVision just has in general. So some key takeaways here. There's no more manual auto switch, which it does still function if you want to use it, but you can just use the sticks to override a automated operation, or to do your height adjustments as well. And then, like DJI, you can also start tasks in the air, switch to M+ mode and back, and auto missions while in the air. And then there's some more settings and protocols for various scenarios, kind of like what DJI has. So there's a bunch of pages here. I don't know. I'll pull up the app on the remote, and we'll go through it. That's probably what you guys want to see anyways, before we run through this big list here. All right. Hopefully I can reconnect my AirDroid. Okay, perfect. Using AirDroid here, so it's a wireless connection. So hopefully we stay connected. It's a little bit latency is not as good when you use the AirDroid over Wi-Fi, and the as far as like the detail on your screen that you're seeing might be not as quite as high resolution, but at least you'll understand how the system functions. And I'll back out here. We'll go to the main screen. So this is what the main screen looks like. Basically, you turn your remote on. This is what you see. Basically, you've got your drone information up in the top right. You got device, task, log, users, settings on the left-hand side, and then the bottom side we have our different modes that we can operate in. I might move my camera out of the way. Okay, there we go. So we'll jump into auto. I'm sure you guys want to see kind of the mapping side of things and settings as well. I do have a drone connected to the remote. You can see my camera there on the bottom left. So it's on the trailer right now, underneath the trailer. I was surprised I have 25 satellites sitting underneath the top deck of the trailer, but just so you can see kind of what it looks like when the drone's connected. So it's going to look pretty familiar to you if you've run a lot of the drone systems in the past. On the left-hand side here, we have our different tabs. So for our operating fields, those are fields that we have started spraying but have not finished spraying. We can, if I just click on one here, you can click on it, and then you can see my green dot is where I'm going to continue. If I were to continue this, so if I hit continue, there you can see it shows me what I have sprayed already, and then the green dot's where I'm going to pick up where I left off. all the parameters and everything load in from that previous operation. So these are the parameters that ran on that previous operation there. All your route direction, everything loads in. Now you can change your route direction. It's one of the kind of the cool things that EAVision has is, let's just say you got rained out one day, you're spraying a big field, the wind changes directions. The next day when you come back and you want to spray the different direction, you don't have to remap it. You can just, well, a few different ways. You can click on your heading angle and you can change your heading angle that way, or you can do a reference boundary. Let's say we want to spray this east-west, then we spray it east-west, and it just changes what we have not already sprayed. Then of course we can change our start point. Wrong button. Start point. And there we can flag anywhere along the boundary or in a corner. We can put our start point wherever we want to put our start point at. We don't have to just go into a corner. So it makes it very customizable there. So I'll back out of the operating tab here. And of course it shows us, the different fields we have in the area. I just have the one right here. If we go to field tab, that will basically be where we can start a field from scratch. Now it does still show you if you have started like this demo day field that I have on the top of the screen here in the middle of the map. It does show you right there if you are operating this field already, which in this case we did start spraying it, not finish spraying it. So it does tell you if you have it in operation. That way maybe I should go back to my operating tab and finish instead of starting from scratch. But you can select from here. You can also select from a map view. I don't know if I've got, so here's multiple fields here, so I can select on my map view. If they're overlapped, then we can select, these are both called test. There you go. You can select either or with a pop-up. And then if I select a field, we can just hit operate, and there it loads in our route. It tries to give you the most efficient route, essentially. So fewest number of turns, and always put your start point as close to the drone as possible. In this case, our drone's sitting about 5 miles away, but that would be the closest point to the drone. And then we've got templates in here, so we can select a template that will change our parameters right here: droplet size, volume, speed, height, and then our route spacing there. But of course, we can edit those if we need to. We can do our slider bar. We can tap right there, and we can edit all those parameters. And then we have the EA system actually gives you, so it's a bit different than the DJI system, if that's what you're familiar with. The DJI system, you actually set your connection route, return to home route, speed and height, whatnot, over here in your settings, so over here. On the EA system, you tie that to the operation, so to that field. So it saves to that operation, not to the drone. That's one of the differences between DJI and EA. So here we've got entering field settings and exiting field settings. So on our entering terrain follow, we have 3 options. We can enable terrain follow. It'll do terrain following just like it is during spraying, going into the field or out of the field. We can disable terrain follow. Well, it's just going to be a fixed altitude height from the home point. And then we can do ascend only, where it actually goes terrain follows, but only goes up. So if a terrain follows up over a hill and then there's a valley, then it won't go back down the other side of the valley. It'll just keep going flat. It actually is useful for certain scenarios. Then of course we've got enter detour is just your obstacle avoidance, bypass on, bypass off. So do you want it to go around obstacles or not? You're just going to go up and over obstacles. Of course, we got speed and height in there as well. Max speed, entry and exit right now is 45 feet per second. That is the same thing here with our operation speed. Under our route tab here, we can set our route spacing anywhere from 3 to 98 feet wide. I'm not sure why you need that wide. Maybe if you're skipping every other row. And then, of course, we have heading angle, which will do the most efficient heading angle to start with. Then, of course, you can change that like I showed you earlier. Start point and safety points. Safety points are basically a customizable path in and out of the drone, or in and out of the field. So you can drop these safety points. I can start here, add one here, add one there. And there you see the drone is going to go to 0.1, then 0.2, and then to the green dot. And then it's going to go 2, 1 on the way home. Or you can cancel that and not use safety points. Then we have different ways that we can spray this field in terms of with a boundary or not. So there is with boundary, that's one boundary pass. We'll spray the boundary pass first and then the interior. Boundary only, and then with boundary only, you can increase the number of borders. We'll see if we can do 7. So there's 7 passes on the outside of the field. And then we kept toilet bowl for comic relief. And with toilet bowl, it's just the same thing as boundary pass, but you can actually add in, we'll do 5. So there's 5 boundary passes and then the interior of the field. Not a lot of use cases, of course, there, but there are some. Reference boundary just lets us change our direction to make it parallel to one of the boundary lines. Then we have auto spray, which actually will spray as the drone turns on the corners. So you see a solid white line right there on the corner. And then we check that. Now you see a gray line, so it's not going to spray as it turns. And there you see all gray lines, so it's not going to spray at all. Just basically do a test run with an empty tank. And then we've got shrink all, which is bringing in our route from the entire perimeter of the field. If you have field surrounded by trees, I guess, you import a shape file, then that's how you can get it out away from the trees. And then shrink, single shrink would be to basically bring it in from one side. So we just selected that side there, and then we can bring it over from that side up to 130 feet. And there you see it brings over on the bottom side here, even though we didn't select that as one of our sides. It still brought it over from that side. It's pulling as from this side here. This would be like for a downwind buffer or something. Then there's a cut route function, which doesn't actually happen until, I might be able to confirm this. Oh, yeah, there we go. Drone's connected, so I can confirm it. So cut route function, this is basically where you can only do half or a quarter, whatever, of your flight path that you have. It works by waypoint, not percentage. DJI has the same thing, only it works in percentage. This is waypoints. And this is one of the ways that you can run multiple drones on one field, multiple 150s on one field, is with the cut route function. Okay, I'm going to exit this operation here. And I guess, I don't know if you guys saw that. I'll pull one up, hit operate, hit confirm. And then if I hit exit, you can see an operation report. So you can get this report, during the operation or between flights, where it actually shows you what you've done, what's remaining, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so as far as making a boundary, it's going to work the same way that you're used to with about any other spray drone system. You can make a boundary any number of ways. You can import a shapefile from any system that has shape files or KML files. It'll accept both. You can import basically a TIFF file that's an orthomosaic imagery. You can import orthomosaic imagery to the remote via the cloud system, and then make your boundary from that either on the cloud system, on a computer, or on the remote. You can use the handheld RTK or GPS mapper. You can use the drone GPS. You can tap on the screen, which I can show you right now. And basically any number of ways that you can think of creating a boundary, that's about how you can do it. No, new field. You can save a field without making a boundary. That's what that was there. That's what I did prior. Okay, so one of the differences on the EA system here is you actually select your terrain type whenever you make a field. So your terrain type is tied to the field, not to the drone. So if you're mapping a field that has a high slope, then you actually tell the system that this field has a high slope. That way, when you go to that field with the drone, you don't have to select that in the settings in the drone. It automatically selects that. Now we run pretty much every field at flat. The flat field that's selected here in our landform, pretty much every field at flat, unless you're doing some very steep stuff. You don't really need to change this. Okay, I'm just going to give this a name here. Electric wires, don't worry about that. You shouldn't be flying at electric wires and wanting the drone to avoid those autonomously. Not a great idea with a high dollar investment. But if you set this, it just slows the speed down. Water surface is important. If you are spraying over water or even ferrying over water, it might be a good idea to select water surface because basically the radar and LiDAR will read through the surface of the water if it's not selected and potentially cause it to go down into the water. Same way with radar systems on like a DJI drone. Okay, what next? And then from here, we can map with a hand draw, with the drone or UAV, or with a surveying tool. So you just hit hand draw, pops up across here. You can set a hotkey on the remote here, on the back of the remote or anywhere. Set a hotkey to drop those. I think I might already have that. There you go. The back of my remote is set as a hotkey. But there you go. You can just drop your points just like that. If you're using satellite imagery, then that's how you do it. And then you can make an obstacle. Here's a normal obstacle. Here's a circular obstacle. And if we tap on it, we can make our radius a bit bigger. I'll do 50 feet. And that just makes it a bit bigger and tells you what the radius is there. And then no spray zone works the same way. Just tap and make your no spray zone. And then save. And you can go operate now or just save. So if you hit operate now, and it goes right into operating. And then all this is the same thing we just looked at. But there's a lot of field editing things here that you've got. So if you're running multiple drones, you can hit divide. And then you basically just add a couple of points here and then hit save. Give this to the new created fields that you've got a name. I'll just call this DIV. And there you go. So you've got, now you have 3 fields, DIV1, DIV2. This is another way to run multiple drones. If you have one boundary, you can split that boundary in half or in quarters or whatever you want to do there. But if I select this field here, we can merge fields, which I don't have a great example here. Maybe I can try these two. So if we hit merge, it actually pops up with multiple fields. Oh, there I've got more fields. Pops up with multiple fields here. So if you want to spray consecutive boundaries, this is mainly for doing spot spraying. If you have lots of little, quarter acre, half acre patches of weeds that you want to have the drone go from one to the next, then you can select multiple fields. So I'll select, that's actually a bad one. Let me select a different one here. Okay, test, and then we'll do merge, and then we'll do this one here. There we go. So there's our 2 fields, and then I hit merge, and then I just draw basically what path I want the drone to take from one to the next. So this is how the drone's going to get from one field to the next. Hit save, make a name, and then it takes it a second. There it goes. So just created this merge field, and there you see, if I hit operate, it's going to spray one and then go to the next, and there's our line going to the next. And you can do this. I've done it on up to, I think, 7 different patches, and I haven't tried more than that, I guess, but I know you can do 7 different patches, small patches. Then you have a few other options in here. I'll run it on this one here. We've got hand draw, where we can actually do a customized route, where if we want the drone just to fly a single line, starting here, going here, this would be good if you're doing like waterways or maybe you're doing fence rows, and you just want the drone to fly right down the top of that area. Then you can do this, and then you can actually select the line you don't want it to spray. So if you're going from one to the next, I just highlight that line there, switch to spray off. There's going to spray the solid white, not spray the dotted white. Then save that. And you go to operate, there it is. And then you can copy fields, transfer fields to a demand, which if I pop this up, it'll show you all of our demands here. and or we can gift it, which is transfer to someone else's account. Demand is something unique to EA. This is basically a work order. So if you're doing a work order and you want to be able to basically line out all of your jobs for your applicators, this is how you do it. And if I pull up, probably got one in here that's got some fields tied to it. So I pull up test fungicide view field. Here you can see a list of fields, and you can see what's currently in operation and what has been completed. Yeah, which makes it pretty convenient to separate out your different jobs that you're doing. You can actually tie a product and a client to this. Okay. All right, I'm getting pretty deep in the weeds here, but I think this is what you guys want to see. Getting over to our settings, here's our flight settings. A lot of the stuff, that's going to be pretty much the same as what a lot of the drones have. This is going to have one of the. I'll just show you kind of the more interesting things. We've got perception setting is about the same. It's going to be a bit different than a few of the drones out there as far as how it works, but essentially it's going to operate the same way, just different terminology. We've got a couple of really cool settings here. Reverse operation speed actually enables you to be able to fly a different speed down versus coming back. So if the wind is going with the drone down and against the drone coming back, that's going to affect your pattern. You can change your speed going one way versus another way. And then you can do a customized spray control here. There we go. So if you want to set, let's say your 300 microns isn't big enough for you, you can actually set a customized rotation speed of the disc. So we haven't done testing, to show you what these different speeds mean. To actually get this into, if I get it to select it here, get it into this scale here. 300 is the top, but you can do a customized where you can actually set the speed of your discs down to 1600 RPM, and we know that under auto spray, 300 RPM is or 300 microns is about 5,000 RPM. So we know we can go with a larger droplet size. We just don't know what that 1600 actually is. We haven't done that testing yet. There's a few other things in here too, like battery. It does have a function to automatically determine low battery. If you turn this on, then it doesn't rely on the percentage in the box there. It actually comes home at a battery level that's safe to get it on the ground, at least by 20%. That has to do with how far away the drone is and the payload that it has in it as well. Of course, you can turn that off and run just a warning or home at 30%, and then you've got a forced landing percentage there as well. So a lot of similarities that you might be used to from DJI. Then of course a lot of things that EA has already done with their previous systems. Okay, I think that's it on the software. We'll take questions here at the end if you guys have questions. I'll X back out to the main screen. Okay, let me run through here and see if there's anything I missed that I think is important to cover on the software for the remote. There's some safety features that have been added for the 150, beeping before takeoff. Everything runs faster on this remote. It's overhauled hardware on the remote, not just software. The Bluetooth connect to charger, if you guys haven't seen the video on that, that's a pretty cool feature. And something that we use quite a bit for keeping up with 3 batteries on big fields where battery charging tends to be your cycle times tend to be a problem. That's something we use quite a bit, is this Bluetooth connection. You can actually see the charge level of your battery in the charger on your operations screen on the remote, and then you can actually pull it as soon as you need to pull it, not wait for the fans to shut off. There's a lot of other features. I went through some of these that DJI does not have on their system. That's kind of like an EA only thing, and We went through a lot of this stuff here already on this system. Of course, the 4G connection we talked about already. Bluetooth connection. Spreader template has a factor that you can use, which is pretty cool, and it shows the empty tank icon. Also a very cool feature. Then there's features that will be coming, yet to come. This is kind of a short list. There's a few things that we want to add as on addition to this list. Prescriptions are coming from Pix4D and other systems. Automatic boundary creation with Manual Plus application, one-sided spraying, and of course, like I mentioned, larger micron size, which you can do now. We just don't know exactly what it is. Okay. Then, since we're done on the software on the remote, there's a lot of questions on like app and stuff with the EA system. Something that might be useful to show you guys right now. So I'll see if my other AirDroid's showing up. Oh, perfect. There we go. Okay, so you're looking at my phone screen right now. So hopefully I don't get any notifications that you that we don't want anybody seeing. But I'll try to find some. Here we go. All right, so from this is like the home screen of the app. So it's called the EAVision Insights app. Works on any Android device, any Apple device as well. And from here we've got operations. So if we've it's basically operation list, what we've been doing each day. And if we click on one of these, then it'll pull it up. We can go through the operations that we did that day, including our hand flying or our manual flying here. And the cool thing about this, you can actually take this and hit this share button in the top right corner. That gives you a link right there. And then if we switch over to, I'll just pull up my browser and I'll just, there it is. So we can just send that link to your client or whoever that you're spraying for. And it actually shows them everything that you sprayed that you had selected in the app, and they can actually see everything that you can see, both manual and autonomous flying. Okay, here's the app, and we can go through our different previous days. There's different selection tools that you can use in here. And then if we go into our different apps on our app, we can get a more detailed report of operations in here. So if I I'll just select this one here, or I'll tap on it. And then this is a little bit more detailed information from that operation, including actually a replay of the operation to see where the drone went first and where it sprayed first and whatnot. And then you can connect it to a demand, which I'll show you the demands right here. So same thing, you can create a demand in here, which, I'll show you my own demand. So here you can put in pesticide type, customer name, all that stuff, and then create a demand. Basically, this would be like if you're spraying for a client or for a certain product or whatever. And if you click on a demand here, it'll do the same thing that's on the remote, and I'll show you those fields. And I can probably pull up, here's our test fungicide that we saw on our screen. That's our members. There we go. Yeah, so here it shows you, again, what's been done. So if you have people spraying for you and you're monitoring a fleet of drones, you can see what's been finished down there in the bottom right and what's still operating. And what has not been sprayed yet. We've got team management, data monitors. Basically, if you've got different pilots in your account, you can see what they've sprayed. We've got different, we can see all of our different devices in here. And then plot management. So you can create and edit plots in here and upload plots from a phone or from your computer. So here's that merge plot that we did. And we can hit edit. It's a seamless data sync, I should mention, from the remote to your cloud account. So we can edit everything in here, from boundaries to obstacles to no spray zones. And this will, once you save it, if your remote's online on Wi-Fi, it'll automatically sync over to your remote. We can upload plots So there you go, shape file, KML file. You can upload plots, upload boundaries, I should say. You can do 100 boundaries at a time in one shape file, one KML file. You can do this from your phone or from a computer. And then you can map on here as well. You can create a new boundary, which is by tapping on the screen. You can change from obstacle to no spray zone and just hit upload. And it'll go onto your account, onto your remote that is on your account. So a lot of features have been added to the EAVision Insights app. If you guys have an EAVision and haven't used it, I highly recommend that you do. And then I'll show you real briefly. I believe I've got it somewhere in here. Yep, here is the, this is the same thing. Same thing we just looked at, only the online version, or I should say the computer version. Only thing it adds, I guess it adds two things. Under operation management, you can actually export. So if I click one here and hit export, then it sends it up, sends the file up. And I just did this just a second ago, and I imported that file into just Google Maps. There you see it sends all of your application lines at once. So it's not just, but it separates them out over here. Your different flights will be separated out on the left-hand side. And it also does your boundary as well as a KML file. Which if you spray the entire boundary, you can use this as an application layer, essentially, if you're bringing it into any GIS, AgGIS system. Okay. All right, that's software. We talked a little bit about hardware. I'm sure there's lots of things that I've missed, but I want to leave plenty of time for questions here. So we're going to get right to it. Just before we do, though, J150 is available to order now. The first shipment is pretty much sold out. We have a lot of drones coming in, though, over the next few months. A lot of drones coming in over the next few months. Base package is just above 40,000. That would be a drone spray tank with 4 nozzles, remote controller, 3 battery charger, and a 1-year free of 4G SIM. Right now, those are all T-Mobile SIM cards. You don't have to have them; they just make it a bit more convenient if you're running on 4G, but you don't have to, of course. But we're providing that 1 year for free. Okay, I've been talking a lot right now, so we're going to jump right over to questions. And if you have questions, pop those in the Q&A. Should be on your screen there. And Josiah should be sending me over some questions here to answer. So I'm going to run through the list. And if you're sending the questions in right now, then I'll answer those as they come in. Okay, so question here from Caden. Does the SuperLink bounce both control and FPV camera feed or just control? It's both. So the SuperLink is just like the DJI relay, where it takes the signal from your remote and it sends that signal to the relay or the SuperLink. And then it sends it from the SuperLink to the drone and then vice versa. So it triangulates your signals. Instead of going, of course, from your drone to remote, it goes drone to SuperLink to remote. And then you can triangulate that by putting it up on top of a pole. Or we're actually in the process of development on a very, very light relay only box that will actually be able to go much easier onto a smaller drone like Autel Max or M30 or possibly even a Mavic because we're trying to make it very, very lightweight. That way if you just need your SuperLink for a couple of flights, then you could be able to hover that drone up in the air at 100 foot and get those 2 flights knocked out. But we have to make the SuperLink very light to do so. And one of the things there, the SuperLink does both RTK and relay, or you can do either or both, I should say. So we're actually getting a SuperLink that is just relay only, and that has a much lighter battery and much lighter shell. SuperLink does not work with multiple drones. So if you want to run multiple drones and you need relay, and I should keep in mind here that if you've got line of sight of the drone, meaning if this remote can see the drone, you can see the drone, whatnot, then you don't need to run a a relay station or a super link. The drone, something, to mention here too, is the drone will operate without signal as well. Every drone should, do have a setting to do this. EAVision is no exception. And so if your field's mapped out appropriately, then it will operate without signal, going down a hill and then back up the other side. And what we've noticed on the, one of the things like operating other drones in the past, the T-40, for example, the terrain following was not very good on it. And so if it would come into a hillside or a terrace, then it would do emergency braking sometimes. It could be a problem whenever you don't have signal and it's just hovering there. We've never had the 150 stop on a hillside or a terrace. Terrain following, like I said, it's impressed us every single place that we've put it. The terrain following has just been phenomenal. It actually has a function in there to where if you are spraying on something that is very, very steep, potentially even overhanging, then the drone will actually, if it gets too close to something or if it gets into an area where it can't actually terrain follow up and over, then you can set it, there's a setting in there where you can actually back out. It'll back out and then go up, or back out, go up, and then go forward. But anyway, Superlink does work, one drone only. Can you gift fields between 100 and 150? Yes. So it's works with your EA account. No different than like with DJI Smart Farm or the AGMS system. Same thing. You can do the same thing from a 40, 50 to a 30. Same thing with J100 to J150. Okay, question here from Austin. When taking over an autonomous route, does the software keep track of what you manually sprayed, controlled, then when pressing resume, continue from where the pilot stopped manually flying? Okay, I think I know what you're saying, but maybe not. So let me explain this two different ways. So if the drone's flying an autonomous route and you press pause or move the right stick and take over manual control, then you basically have, it's just like any other drone system where once the drone stops, you have like 3 or 4, or in the EA case sometimes 5 different return options. So it'll return back to where it left off from, or it'll return back to the same line it left, only where the drone's currently positioned at, or the adjacent line, or the end of the field is where you can send it to return to start spraying. So like if you stop spraying, fly around a tree, and then want to continue over there on the other side, or fly over a waterway that you forgot to map, and then continue on the other side, you can do that, or you can send it back. If you're asking, does the software keep track of what you manually sprayed? So if you take over autonomous and then you go manually spray somewhere in that same field perhaps, and then you return back to autonomous, it will overspray what you already sprayed, if that's what you're asking. If you're asking, does it keep track of acres that you manually sprayed? Yes, it does. I think I showed that on the app here. It does not put those acres into into that field though. That's a separate task, but you can keep track of your acres. I hope I answered that question. Let me know if I didn't. What generators do we recommend? So you need 13,000 running watts 15,000 running watts, I should say, at the minimum to fast charge. If you're, and what we've noticed too is if you're pretty much doing like small fields, like 20 acres, and then moving down the road, then another 20 acres, you don't actually need to run 13,000 watts because the drone will spray 8 acres typically at minimum on small fields, put 16 gallons in there, 2 gallon rate, and you can cover 8 acres in a tank load. So you'll be able to put 20 acres on 3 batteries pretty easily. And then as you're moving to the next field, of course, it'll charge the batteries that aren't charged up yet. But if you're doing big fields, then that's in where you're spraying all day long, nonstop. That is where you need to run full power, and you need to manage your battery charging pretty closely. So you can keep up with 3 batteries and 1 charger at full power running half-mile long fields continuously for long days, but you can't let your batteries balance on the charger every cycle. You have to pull them a little bit earlier, and that's what I mentioned about Bluetoothing to the charger. Is that will show you between 95 and 100%. That's perfectly fine to pull the battery. EA has confirmed that, and the battery shows actually 100% in the drone. If you do so, it just doesn't balance the cells, which is fine for many cycles. And then you can operate all day long, or you just get two chargers. But anyways, as far as generators go, we've run Winco. We're actually working with Winco right now to actually customize a charger specifically for drones. Winco off the shelf, they're 18,000 running watt, and I think they have a 16,000 running watt off the shelf. Those do work, but we are getting one that is customized specifically for drones. Be the same price, just a little bit modified. And we run two Predators, split the cords, run two Predators. That does work. Probably not the best solution. And then, of course, a big diesel generator works as well. Okay, Jacob's asking, can you modify the connection leg location when merging fields? Can you modify the connection leg location? I think I showed that. Yeah, you can drop that connection leg. Now, okay, I showed that you can make it wherever you want. Whenever you're creating that merged field, going from one field to the next, you can put connection legs between the 7 different fields or whatever you have anywhere you want, in any order that you want. But once you make that and create that merged field, that merged operation, you cannot edit that after the fact. That saves as a field is what that does. So once you make it once, you cannot edit it after the fact. Lead time on J150. So we should be shipping out the first batch of drones starting, I think this week, and into next week and the following week, of course. But I do believe that if you haven't already ordered one, that first batch is probably sold out by the time I'm saying this right now to you. We have another batch coming in, but it'll probably be in, I want to say, let's see, what's today? Middle of next month, fingers crossed. Probably end of next month, just on the safe side. Air data integration. Okay, air data. All right. Joshua, air data. I'm not familiar with air data, I guess. You might fill me in on that. Have the operators that have been, this is from Regan, have the operators that have been flying the J150 experienced any type of degraded performance when flying a field with completely full tanks? Degraded performance, I'm not so sure if you're referring to like battery or power of the drone. Not that I know of. Now, there has been cases where there's, when you load a drone all the way up and do a long ferry across the field, you're going to be pulling a lot of juice out of your battery. And this is with any drone, especially big drones like the 150. So if you put 20 gallons in there and you're ferrying out a half mile, first off, that's a terrible idea because you're never going to spray your tank out. And secondly, that does require a lot of power out of the battery, out of the motors, out of everything to do that. And so you're going to drop your battery percentage by quite a bit if you're ferrying out a long ways with a completely loaded tank. So it's never a good idea anyways. Now, if you're not ferrying that far, like I said earlier, 600 feet or so, then full tanks, that's what we've been doing, frankly, on most of our our own flights with the 150 is just a full day long spraying out 1,000 gallon with 20 gallon loads every time, and we haven't noticed any issues on our units. Like I said, we had those two eyelets break, but I don't know if that was a payload thing. Like I said, I think it was a vibration thing. It had to do with how those eyelets were on those units. Do you have any experience with low volumes of half a gallon per acre? Also concerned about what droplet spectrum when using high flow rates that will flood the atomizers, from Alan. Okay, high flow rates flood the atomizers. Gotcha. Okay, yeah, so droplet spectrum. Yeah, droplet spectrum, like I said, we did droplet testing, but we use drop scope. And for some reason, all of the 40 some odd tests we did on the water sensitive cards using drop scope sensor up on that load up to our cloud account, we lost all but one of those tests somewhere in the cloud. So we don't. That does tell us the spectrum of droplets, but we don't actually have those results right now, unfortunately. So we're gonna have to either redo those or find how we can get those out of the cloud. So we haven't done any half gallon per acre work. We have done gallon per acre work. When you do low volume work, of course, the limiting factor typically is going to be flight time with a loaded tank. Just not discharging the tank as fast. Gallon per acre, you don't want to fill the tank all the way up, even on big fields. Because it's a lot of passes back and forth, even on half-mile runs or mile runs. And at half-gallon rate, be the same kind of thing. So yeah, you could do it. Just I don't know what kind of volume that you would need to have. And then yeah, droplet spectrum, don't know. As far as flooding the nozzles, we have not been able to flood the nozzles. That's one of the interesting things about the atomizers on the 150 is that unless you're putting more than 2.5 gallons per minute through one singular nozzle, you will not flood it at any micron size. Now we haven't done much work at like really low really high microns, large droplets with high flow rates like that to see if you will flood it there. But from the standard settings, you can't flood the nozzle unless you're doing over 2.5 gallons per minute through each nozzle. Okay, Blake's asking, when will we have a sort of machine link where two drones can work together in the same field without worry of collision or overlap? Yeah, I know. We all want this right now. Pretty much every drone that I've seen out there doesn't necessarily communicate to each other. There are systems, that I've seen that data feeds back into one device, but as far as a true swarming capability, where the system is basically dispatching drones to not just spray a section of the field, but certain passes of the field based on when they take off and not running into each other. That is not the case yet on the 150 or EAVision system. Hopefully we can keep working on that with EA and eventually have something there. Bobby's asking, what is the amps for the plugs into the generator? I was told 150 amp plug or 230 amp plugs. Which one is it? Gotcha, Bobby. Yeah, so just do the math here. 13,000 watts. It actually pulls about 12,500 watts, but so 13,000 watts, 12,500 watts times 240 volts is going to be at or above 50 amps. And if you're using a 150 amp plug, unless you plug it into a 60 amp breaker, there's a possibility of tripping the breaker, especially on like cheaper generators. You might not actually have a full 50 amps available there. So we tend to recommend that you split the plugs and you run them on two separate plugs. So two 30 amp plugs, a 30 amp plug, and a 50 amp plug, two 50 amp plugs. That doesn't matter necessarily, so long as both plugs are getting 240 volts and they both have at least 30 amps on 30 amp breaker that they're running off of. Then you shouldn't trip your breaker. You should have plenty of power as long as your generator can provide the wattage. Cade's asking, what is the max distance that the J150 has been flown at in true application height? In my area, I commonly fly 3,500 feet and max of 4,300 feet on a few farms. Okay, so yeah, not. This is hard to I'm sure you're asking about signal when you ask this. And like I said, as long as you can see the drone, your signal is going to be good. We've had it out to a mile, a bit over a mile actually. And turning around at that distance, sometimes you'll lose FPV or it'll kind of get glitchy as it turns around and starts heading back, but it regains pretty quickly. So if you're doing a lot of manual flying it out manually a mile out, then I might not recommend doing that. Even if you're on a flat field, you can see it. But if you're flying autonomously, you're not going to lose signal at a mile. At least what we've experienced ourselves. Now, if you can't see the drone and you're out that distance, the drone's behind a hill or a tree, then that's going to be a problem, probably. I would say. Okay, Bennett's asking, will you be doing any swath testing in corn? You know, I'd like to, but we haven't. I'm running out of time to do so, unfortunately. We do have some green corn still around here, but not a lot. And this is also pretty hard to do as well, because you can only get so many replications, right? With string testing, you can get 42 different replications, 40 different tests, different parameters in a day easily. In corn, it's pretty difficult because you want to test basically penetration from the top to the ear leaf, and so what you can do obviously is go spray a product and see if you have streaking. But that doesn't tell you everything, because what if disease pressure is high? Then you might not see streaking unless disease pressure is high. So long story short, I would like to, just don't know if we're going to have time. Sorry. But I would recommend, so it doesn't matter what drone you're running. If you are running corn or a lot of other crops for that matter even, and you want to get the best penetration, run perpendicular to the rows. If you have to fly fast, you don't want to slow down. You want to get the best penetration. Run perpendicular to the rows, and then that will give the droplets a bit better chance to actually blow down into, and get lower down through the canopy. Okay, Bennett's asking, when uploading boundaries into DJI software, it always makes interior boundaries obstacles. Is that the case in this software? Let's see. So the only way that we've done this is with Pix4D, but that was actually before they did the updates. And I haven't tested this recently. And according to recent comms from the development team with Pix4D and EA, they said that this does function from the Pix4D system, but I haven't actually tested this with just shape files of an interior boundary. Something that I probably should test. Yeah, let's add that to the list. Okay. All right. Josiah's giving me the finger over there. Not the one you think, though. Okay. Okay, and then here we go. What's your biggest pro of the J150 versus other drones currently on the market? Thanks, webinar. Oh, you're welcome. So the biggest pro to other drones currently on the market, drones that, I'm only going to talk about the drones that, I've run myself or have talked to operators that have run a lot of drones and have also run this one and have given me their thoughts. So first off, the biggest pro is going to be tank volume. Okay, maybe top three or so here. Tank volume and battery life, I think those are kind of 2 in 1. Tank volume, battery life, and battery charging has been very impressive, especially on big fields, where I know that's a challenge with some other drones that are out there, is trying trouble keeping up with batteries. With the 150, if you manage your batteries correctly, you can keep up with one charger, which is pretty impressive when you're running big fields for many hours at a time. Spraying an entire tank out also with at 2 GPA. And then terrain following has got to be probably, when you look at so software, all that kind of stuff. I mean, software on the 150 is been a lot of things that we've really liked improvement wise. But software is going to keep getting better, and software can always change, all that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to go there. But the terrain following is another really, really big pro we've seen. Whenever we first started running the 150, like our production unit 150s, we started doing testing on. We're running a lot in big fields. We thought this is going to be a big field drone. You can get 2 rounds on a half-mile run at a 2-gallon rate and still have more left in the tank. And we thought it's not going to be for small fields, right? Too hard to transport. You can't spray a full tank out on small fields, so why would you use it on a small field? Then we took it to some smaller fields on the hillsides of Missouri River bottoms and the bluffs. And the bluffs are pretty. There's some pretty steep, small fields surrounded by trees over there. And the first off, we noticed, and there's some very steep hills. We noticed terrain following is phenomenal. The best we've ever seen. You don't get that bucking, where it kind of slows down, goes, slows down, goes, slows down, goes. It's extremely smooth. If it has to slow down, it will, but it's not a knee-jerk reaction. And it's not just terrain following up the hill. It'll accelerate up the hill. If it turns around at the bottom, it'll accelerate up the hill, getting to full speed, 45 feet per second at the top. And it's also coming down hills as well, which has been a problem. Like on the 50 is really good. T50 is really good at terrain following up hills for the most part, but it's coming downhill sometimes, especially a long run coming downhill. We notice with the 50 is it goes, but then it stops and it kind of slows down and lowers, slows down and lowers if you got a long steep hill. The 150 does not do that and also holds terrain very well going downhill. So terrain following, battery, and Swath, although I'm still skeptical on that myself. Okay. Let's see here. Do I ever sleep? Actually, probably more now than I ever have. Maybe it's inaccurate. I don't know. When I'm here at the shop like I am now, it's usually about we'll call it 6 hours. Okay. Are we good, Josiah? Okay. I'm getting a different finger from Josiah now. It's a good finger this time. And so that is telling me that we've answered questions. If you guys do have other questions that I didn't get to tonight, of course, we would love to help you out. We try to be very reachable. We can get you in touch with a local dealer or somebody here at Agri Spray Drones. We can get you guys a demo because seeing is believing, and this drone is very impressive. So we'd love to do that for you. All right. I hope this was informative. Thanks, guys. Have a good night.